Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Shokooh Miry. I am a psychologist, and I am so honored to be moderating this panel discussion. We have amazing, accomplished experts, and I know that we will all enjoy and benefit from a very rich discussion of our topic today, and I look forward to asking lots of questions and benefiting from all of your shared insights. After nearly 40 years of mass migration from Iran to the United States of America, we now have a diaspora community. And our community, like many in the diaspora, faces issues of culture and adjustment, as well as growth. Most Iranian American families are now feeling conflicted in negotiating between the American and the Iranian parts of their identities, the Iranian and the American parts of their value systems, especially as applied to raising children, navigating relationships, and nurturing our elderly. Questions that I hope that we can touch on today include how we balance our cultural heritage and the different parts of our identity and ourselves and our parents in this new cultural context that we face. How does a cross-cultural generation deal with the dynamics of complicated family structures while remaining true to who they are and what their values have been for hundreds, if not thousands of years? These are the kinds of questions that I hope will guide our discussion today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we've structured our panel. What I'm hoping to do is share a bit about each of the experts that have so generously given their time to be here with you. So I'll tell you a little bit about their backgrounds, and then we'll dive into some questions. And if we have time, I might be able to take questions from the audience, but it really depends on my timekeeper and manager in the back. Okay, not Persian time, real time. Okay, so we're going to start with Ellies. Ellies Derakhshesh Clelland is the Senior Director of Social Services at Pars Equality Center. Prior to joining Pars, Ellies was a founding member and program director at the Global Catalyst Foundation, a nonprofit that initiates and supports innovative technology projects worldwide to improve education and alleviate poverty. She also serves on the board of support for Partners of Sustainable Development. She is currently the chair of the Refugee and Immigrant Forum of Santa Clara County. Please join me in welcoming her. Next, we have Jila Behnad. Jila Behnad is a licensed marriage and family therapist who graduated from JFK University. She is in private practice in Dublin, California, working with individuals, couples, and families struggling with depression, trauma, anxiety, marriage, and relationship problems. She is also the founder and CEO of the Raha Foundation, a nonprofit mental health organization that consists of Iranian American psychiatrists, psychologists, MFTs, and social workers in Northern California. Her mission is to break the stigma around mental illness and also to raise awareness and improve the mental health of members of our community. Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Maryam Atai. She is the Associate Director at Golistan Education. She works with a wide range of educators, parents, and communities seeking to create an ideal educational environment, including cultural and heritage language programming. She leads the Golistan CoLab, efforts to capture the unique hybrid pedagogical practices and knowledge base of Golistan School in Berkeley, and to share that with others across the globe. She applies the knowledge she has gained from her own bicultural experiences to tackle issues of immigration and children's education, while helping to create schools that reflect the culture, the hybrid culture of their students. Maryam has a master's in business administration from Sharif University. Thank you so much for being here. Last but not least, we have Pantea Bozorgfar, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist with an MA degree from Santa Clara University. She has extensive experience treating depression, anxiety, grief and loss, parenting, youth and family issues, immigration and multicultural problems, and trauma, and she has completed advanced EMDR training. In addition to a private practice in San Jose, she is the psychotherapist at Grace Adult Day Health Care, which is one of the largest and most effective geriatric health centers in Northern California. They enroll more than 250 elderly participants, of whom almost 80% are Iranian. GRACE is a licensed medical program by the California Department of Public Health, and it helps adults with physical or mental impairments to continue living in their own homes and avoid premature or inappropriate hospitalization. She provides couples and individual psychotherapy services. And in addition to everything I've said, she's also an adjunct professor at Santa Clara University. Please join me in welcoming her. So we'll start with you, Ellie. Can you please tell us a little bit about what PARS and you do to support new immigrant families who are entering our community?
Sure. First of all, I'm honored to be here. It's lovely to be with you guys. And just to give you a very, very quick brief history about PARS. PARS was born about 7 years ago, and it was the vision and the passion of Bita Daryabadi who started this organization. And it started with the legal only services, but 2 years later, they brought the social services as well. And in a nutshell, what we do, we help the newly arrived immigrant and refugee to be self-sufficient as quick as possible. And all the programs that we have, it's according self-sufficiency and integration.
Wonderful, thank you. And Jila, could you tell us a little bit about the Raha Foundation and specifically the work that you do around stigma and mental illness in our community?
This is very exciting. It's great to be part of this amazing panel. I need to tell you my story because Raha's story is my life story. When I was in Iran, actually I was born and grown up in Tehran. So before I moved to the US, I was a Persian literature teacher in Iran. I was about 27, and that was a very happy time of my life. I felt very confident. I was young with so many friends. I had the job that I really loved. And then I got married and I moved to the US, and from the very first day, I just felt lost. I had a great depression. I felt I don't know who I am anymore. I was not that confident person anymore. I couldn't make friends, I couldn't talk, I couldn't work. So, and also I was pregnant, 7 months pregnant when I moved to the US. So after delivery, my OBG doctor noticed my depression. She put me on antidepressant. And she asked me to see a psychologist. So that was my first experience in the US. So in third session of my therapy, my psychologist told me, why don't you go back to school and study psychology? It seems you will be a good therapist. And I love the idea. So I said, I'm going to do it. And I like to help other people in my situation, because I know this is a stage, I will pass this stage, but I don't want other people to have this experience. So that motivation helped me a lot to move off from my depression, and it was a big distraction and a huge goal for me. So after a few years, I got my license, I started my practice, and it was amazing. I loved it, but still I was not satisfied. I felt this is not enough, it's not what I like to do. So I started to contact with other Iranian therapists, and we met for almost a year. And after 1 year, I signed up Raha. It's a non-profit organization. So what we have done so far, we run a lot of workshops and seminars for Iranian, and also we are providing courses for other therapists, non-Iranian therapists. We educate them about our culture. I feel I'm very far from my goal, but I know I'm in the right path, and I'm very hopeful that I can have that place that I had in my dream for other Iranian, especially new immigrants.
That's wonderful, thank you. Maryam, could you tell us a little bit about your work at Golistan and what has really helped you develop your passion about culture and learning in young folks?
Just in case people don't know, Golistan Education is a nonprofit organization in Berkeley, and it has two sections. One is the school, which is a preschool and after-school program, and it's a full Persian language immersion program. And then we also have the CoLab, which when the school was started, the vision was to help start other programs similar to this all across the country. And the vision has expanded because right now we don't just work with Iranian communities, we work with people come from Spanish, Hebrew, Japanese, Arabic, all sorts of communities who want to have similar heritage language programs in their community, and we work with them. And now many of the people who come to us actually don't come for our language expertise, but more so for the pedagogy and our values and the methods we work with children. And we provide services from helping them to financially figure out if it makes sense to start a program, to helping train the teachers, to either sharing our own curriculum. We document all of our resources and everything that we've learned through the years, but we also help them create their own, whatever they want it to look like, their ideal educational environment. And for me, what really drew me to this was the fact that when I was young, when I was 5 years old, we moved to the United States, and we were here for 7 years, and then we moved back. And my parents, their challenge was they didn't want me to be so American that I couldn't assimilate once I went back to Iran. And then I moved back when I was 33 years old, 4 years ago, to get married and because of love. And so I've been in both environments. I've immigrated twice to the United States. And what I loved about this center in Golestan was it was such a reflection of children who are bicultural and who belong to both countries and to both cultures. So that's what drew me.
Great. And now to the other end of the age spectrum, Pantea, with Grace. So I have to disclose, I'm very familiar with the work at Grace because my father-in-law, prior to passing away last year, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it was very important for us culturally and from a family values perspective to keep him at home for as long as possible. And so as part of his treatment, he spent a couple months coming to memory care classes and the like at Grace. So first of all, thank you for all the work that you do. It really does touch all of our families. And my first question to you is, can you tell us a little bit about your role as a psychotherapist, what you provide and what Grace really does?
Sure. So as you know, and you mentioned, Grace is a medical model services that we provide for elderly and impaired individuals. So either cognitively or physically impaired individuals who are eligible, it's a free service for them. Otherwise, they can, even if they're not eligible, they can pay privately to attend. And as for being a medical licensed facility, they have licensed nurses, therapists of all kinds, and my role is to assess, first of all, every person who attends to make sure that they're psychologically okay and if they need services, psychological services. So I assess them, and then I provide either individual psychology services to them, family, we coordinate with the family members, and I provide group classes for them, which is very popular. They call it, I call it group therapy, they call it class. So the minute I walk in the center, they ask me, do we have class today? Do we have class? Which is really nice. And they line up before the class starts, and they all enter. And what we talk about is mostly the things that everyone is familiar with, but these elderly, especially women, have never been told to take care of themselves, to have coping skills, to say no, have boundaries, have, and I talk about empowerment skills. And so some of them, take it out of the room and use it throughout the week and come back and tell me what happened. Some of them forget because they are, they are impaired either physically or cognitively, but they still find this place to come in and to actually feel like they can learn something and they can improve themselves and they can be in better relationships with their significant others, their children, grandchildren. So that's my role there.
Such beautiful work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's come back to Pars. As a psychologist, I work with a lot of families, and I'm often struck by the differences across generation in terms of how people manage their life challenges. So I know at Pars, you see immigrants from different age groups. So I'd love to hear from you first about the challenges that you see for, in connection with Grace as well, for our seniors, for sort of the grandparents, what I would call my grandparents, in that generation when they move to the United States to be with their families. What types of challenges do you see for them?
I think this is the problem that has been existing with every immigrant family. I thought I have a loud enough voice that everyone can hear me. And I came prior to the revolution, and I remember after the revolution when my mother joined us at a very young age. Extremely an active woman back in Iran. The struggle that she went through over the years, that she could not work because of she could not speak the language, she was not familiar with the day in and day out of, the United States, coming to a completely new environment. It's been extremely a challenge for her. So talking to all my friends, this problem never went away. And mainly I want to mention, just to be different than what Grace is offering, we really are focusing on active seniors. I'm among one of them because we say 55 and up. And they have to be, physically active, mentally active. And for this group of people, we made a day and night at that center. It's a very new program. We started about, thank you to you. We really help, we get the help of the community. Sharon offers her services to our senior program. So just to go back, we wanted to establish a program that they feel very comfortable. They come, not only they come and get together as a group, but we wanted their brain to be stimulated. And we wanted them to feel that they belong to a community and they matter in this country. So I wish we would have videotaped when we started this program. We got so many depressed parents that they would come and they felt that they wanted to go back to Iran. They wanted to be, among the family that they could, and they were complaining that we are here because of our children. And shortly after, and we did not create those programs, we just opened our eyes and ears and we listened to their needs. And every single program that we created, it was according to their needs. They come in, they start with the yoga and meditation, and then they have a lunch together. They bring their own lunch, and then in the afternoon, it's a different activities that they do, workshops, from dancing, from singing, from sharing their wisdom, because majority of them, they are doctors. They used to be doctors, lawyers, extremely high position jobs back in Iran, and they love to talk about what they did. They love to share that wisdom with us. So some of these workshops is all about them, and it's like we go to work just to see their faces, after a year having this program, and I'm hoping that we can continue as far as the capacity and just get bigger, larger group in that. And when they get to the point that we will ask your help, I'm sure they will come to you as well, when they reach that point.
It sounds like a lot of what you're doing is really about helping them reclaim meaning and this understanding of I'm still important, I still matter, and my narrative is vital and people want to hear it, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
You also see families that are sort of one generational leap down, right, with young children or school-age children moving to the United States. Can you talk a little bit about the kinds of challenges that those folks and those families experience?
These are, again, another group of families that they leave Iran, they bring their teenage children with them, high school age, just to give them a better future, a better life in US. And they come here and all of a sudden, they realize the gap between them and their children is getting greater and greater and greater as they stay longer in this country. One of the main problems is the lack of speaking the language. The children pick it up very quickly, and the parents stay behind. The parents are not that old that they just sit home and do nothing. They're still young and they need to make some income for the children. So if they were holding great jobs back in Iran, now they have to come here and start from zero. So the children are kind of, I hate to say they look down on their parents, but they don't have that value that they did have back in Iran for them here because of the type of jobs they see their parents are doing. So with this group, we really try to bring people such as Jila June, that she came with the workshops and helped us really the ones that they're knowledgeable in that field. We through different workshops, we kind of try to teach the parents as well as the children that the new life that they are starting here, it doesn't need to be so challenging. We did a 10-session parenting education that I could, even though it was late in the evening, I could not leave myself because I was learning so much from the parents that they were participating. They were a group of 15 parents that they participated in that parenting education workshops, and I was in awe how they could share such an intimate information about their kids within that group. So that really showed that they are, my perspective of the Iranian families when I left Iran 40 some odd years ago, parents never talked about the problem that the children have at home. It was staying at home. But yet it shows how much they have moved from that old style of thinking and how much they were open in receiving help. And it was an amazing session. And since then, their need is so vast that they keep coming back to us and they want to ask for workshops. For the children, again, we had the same type of a workshop only for kids. What is the reason that their life is so different here? And make them focus into the future rather than the present time. Again, whatever program we offer, we really need, the community help, and we really ask for the community to come and help us to jump over, all these barriers that we face on a day-to-day basis. It's a huge problem, and we're just doing our best to help them a little bit move forward. But it's only the time that it will really helps them, longer time. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like wonderful programming. When you said a parenting workshop of 10 series, my first thought was, can I sign up for that? That sounds really wonderful, right? Just to focus, just sit and focus on something that, that not many of us have taken a class on or really had any formal training in, or we're sort of doing the best we can, right? So it's a wonderful resource. I'm also hearing in some of what you've shared that it's really a little bit of an introduction to talk therapy, which makes me think of your work, Jila, and specifically this, experience, this vast experience you have of working with Iranian families to talk about issues of mood, issues of anxiety, issues of transition, mental health in general. Can you share with us what is really some of the common elements? What are the common reasons that members of our community seek therapy?
One of the most reason people come to therapy is relationship, marriage issue, anxiety, depression, parenting, self-esteem, and it's not different with what I hear from non-Iranian clients, American or different culture. I believe they come to therapy at least my clients, they come to therapy for the same reason. Something is different to me for immigrants, that they don't know they are grieving. And that's what I learned from my own experience, that immigration is the biggest loss we experience in our life. When you lose someone, you lose one thing, but when you, after immigration, you lose your home, your friend, your families, your culture, your identity, your certainties, you lose a lot, and that's the biggest loss people experience in the world. But usually we don't know what's happening. The same experience I had when I came to the US, I felt I'm depressed, which I was depressed, but that I was grieving more than depression. And I didn't know about the different stages of grief. So we are biologically, cognitively, physically, spiritually, we wire to love, and to belong. When we don't have that sense, we cannot function. We get sick, we hurt each other, we don't function well. So when we understand that this is what I'm going through is part of my grief, and when we learn how to adjust ourselves with our new reality. I was not the person in US. I was a different person than the person was in Iran. So when I learned that this is the stages I'm going through, if I'm angry, anger is part of my grief. It's not about my friend, my husband, my child. This is the natural reaction. Then I learn how to adjust myself. And many times when I talk about grief with my clients, they get defensive. They said, no, I'm actually very happy that I'm living in this country. I don't miss my home. I don't want to go back. I don't feel any grief. But when we go to more details, when I ask them more questions, one of the questions could be, have you had any experience that you are with a friend and you think about a joke, and even worse than a friend, your child, and you cannot share that joke because they don't get it. So how do you feel about this? It's a huge sadness inside of you. That's grief. When it's your new year, you go to work and you can't say Happy New Year to anyone. That's grief. So when we are aware of these emotions that I'm grieving, then you accept yourself, and the next step is how to deal with our grief. I think that's a big part of my work with immigrants, and especially with Iranian, and that's a big eye-opening, and from this time we see a huge change.
I think it's a wonderful frame, this idea of identity challenges and transition, and looking at the emotional aspect of it. And that frame of grief, I think, is really helpful. I'm gonna steal that for myself and think about it a little bit more. Can you talk a little bit, I know you work with lots of immigrant families, can you talk a little bit about the differences that you might see with families of Iranian descent in therapy specifically, their relationship to you as a therapist, their relationship to each other, how they approach therapy? Can you share a little bit about that?
I'm seeing clients about 10 years, and in the past 10 years, I hear this question all the time, especially from my non-Iranian clients. They ask me, what's the difference between your Iranian clients and non-Iranian? So I used to make a list that Iranian like to give hug or shake hands. Iranian, they don't, or Iranian likes to, usually they like to ask for advice. American like to figure out by themselves. Iranian are usually late.
Not me, I was on time.
Or they talk about their families more than themselves, but American they focus on themselves. So I had a huge list of, and then I came to a point, maybe I can put in under a different categories that it's about collectivism and individualism. Our culture is collectivism, and US is the most extreme individualistic culture. So when we see two different cultures this way, we can explain a lot of things, because in collectivism is focusing on group, on family. In individualistic, they focus on themselves. So we compare ourselves with other group, my family, your family, my city, your city, my country, your country. We have to see ourselves in a group. Versus some countries like US, they focus on individual. So making decision, even when we want to see someone, we have to talk to our parents, we need permission. It's all about group. But here they make their decision, they just announce that, okay, I like this person. Or when it goes to their right, we focus on group right. Here they focus on individual rights. We take care of our family when if they need anything, they go outside. They prefer to talk to strangers. So which one is better? Which one do we prefer? Nobody, like they talk about this different culture, but nobody say which one is better. There is some advantage and disadvantage. Something is very painful with collectivism. We experience a lot of shame. If our group fails, we feel, I have a lot of calls from people. Like recently someone called me and wanted to make an appointment with me, an Iranian lady. I asked her, what's the reason you are seeking therapy? And she said, my sister is very angry. She wanted to come to therapy because her sister is angry. And I hear this a lot. They call me and they say, my brother-in-law has addiction, can you come to therapy? So part of that is great that they feel they have to support each other, but there is a lot of shame behind that I cannot tolerate it because someone else in my group in my family has a problem. And the issue with individualistic, they experience a lot of loneliness. So if I want to say who is the best, I said we are the best. Because we move from a collectivism to individualistic culture, so we can choose the best. We can just pick up the best. I said we like that warm culture, but because we are in this culture, we can learn about how to set our boundaries.
That's beautiful. I think there's something really powerful about the idea of being able to take the pieces of identity that you choose, the parts of values that work for you and your family, and kind of integrate it into who you are and how you want to raise children.
That's the best part of immigration.
Right? Yeah, it's lucky, right? Yeah. It also is a good transition to Maryam, who works with so many children. And so I'm wondering, this idea of identity, how does the meaning of that differ in the families that you work with? And what are some of the differences between bicultural families and immigrant families, the needs and issues that they might have in terms of not only education, but also in terms of just parenting in general?
When I was thinking about this question, and it was something that was interesting for me, I realized that it's really, really hard to generalize and say that, bicultural families are like this, immigrant families, first generations are like that, second generation like that, because they're so diverse and every family has its own subculture. But there are some maybe issues or some patterns that might be more predominant in each group. For example, the issue of biculturalism that Jila was talking about, and bicultural, I'm talking about families where one parent is Iranian and the other parent is non-Iranian. So one issue that we find is really helpful is that for families to be able to accept that their children are going to be bicultural. They're going to be hopefully taking the best of both cultures and growing from there. So with a bicultural family, just because an Iranian and a non-Iranian have gotten married, they've already kind of accepted that they're bicultural, that their children are going to belong to both cultures. Whereas for the immigrant families who are both Iranian, that is a longer process and is a harder process, because the parents are also trying to figure out where they stand in that Iranian-American spectrum, and how American they're going to be, how Iranian they're going to be, and it's harder to kind of figure out where their children are, and sometimes to accept that their children are going to be bicultural and they're going to be American in very ways and very different aspects. Another maybe difference that might be seen is if we look at language as a mechanism for conveying culture, right? If you speak Persian, you understand Tarif. It's just part of the language. You get it, or you understand our respect. It's so embedded in our language. So if we look at language as one way of passing on a culture, for the bicultural families, I think there's a spectrum. For some of them, they've decided that language, English is going to be their family language. But I do notice that in families where the Iranian parent decides that, no, I want my children to speak Persian, it becomes a commitment. It's a very proactive action, because not only are their children exposed to English and to the American culture outside, but now in their home too. It's also a household that can be the language can be English, and so they have to make a harder effort to maintain that language. And a lot of times they use, I know we were talking with Ellie, you have the one parent, one child, and she only speaks Persian, and something that in Golestan we help with families who want to do that. But with families where both parents are Iranian, the priority may be different. Sometimes families who have recently immigrated, because they're also challenged with the issue of language, they don't focus a lot on their children wanting to speak Persian. They want them to speak English. They want them to assimilate as soon as possible. But with those families, it's easier sometimes to pass on the cultural aspects of their culture, because both parents are Iranian. They just grow up in that household, and the grandparents are Iranian, and that cultural continuity is there. And so those are some of the differences. And sometimes the differences has to do with what they have in their community. For example, some places there's programs like Golestan, there's daily immersion programs, which are a combination of both cultures, and their kids go there. And so that's kind of enough for those families. But sometimes if they don't have that, they want a weekend program or an after-school program, which really emphasizes on their Iranian culture. They want something where they just learn about their Persian culture and not the world or everything else in it. So I think that's some of the differences that can be seen.
And have you seen various educational and parenting approaches that specifically help families bridge this generational divide that we've talked a little bit about?
I think that based on my observations of both the families at Golestan, but also through the CoLab, we also work with a lot of different families and educators. I think the first thing that really helps is for when the parents are comfortable with their own cultural identity, and this would fall into, they would probably go to Jila or someone like her for help. But when they're at peace with who they are culturally, that really, really helps with the children, because the parents are in a grounded place and they know where they stand. The second thing is accepting that the children are going to be bicultural, and as much as we want to share our heritage and our culture, they are going to pick up elements of the American culture, and that's going to be part of their day-to-day life, accepting that. And then I think the most important approach is something that I admire a lot in Golestan, is kind of what Jila was talking about. We've tried to pick out, and there's no right or wrong, every family, every school can have their own combination. What is the best elements of each culture that we want these children to take with them? For example, there might be the warmth and the hospitality and the kindness and the respect for elders from the Persian culture, which is things that we really value at Golestan, but also things like worth ethics and being straightforward, or community service from the American culture, and bringing those in an environment which really reflects these children. That's the most important thing. And the household and the family can be the same thing. It can be a reflection of who these children are, a little bit of both cultures, and families can have dialogues and talk about that, and kind of, with the children's help, figure out what is our cultural identity in the household. And having a child-centric approach, definitely, and understanding things from the children's perspective really helps, and reaching compromises. I'm going to end with a little story. When I was growing up here, me and my brother, we really wanted a Christmas tree, and my parents, they didn't feel culturally connected or religiously or spiritually in any way. They didn't want to celebrate Christmas at home. And for the first couple of years, it wasn't a big deal, but as we grew older, before we moved back to Iran, it was really hard. You know, it was strange going to school and saying, well, we don't celebrate Christmas. And I understand my parents' perspective. This wasn't their culture. They didn't want to celebrate Christmas. And at the end, it kind of worked out, because they got us a little Christmas tree, and it was in our room, and we decorated it the way we wanted to, and it was a nice compromise, and it was kind of a win-win situation. And I think families can find those places in, whether it's about sleepovers or academics or what you want to study and relationships, all these areas, you know, there can be compromises, and through dialogue and talking with the children, and understanding the children's perspective, because they might not be in a place where they can understand the parents' perspective yet.
That's
I
great.
think that helps. Yeah.
I love that idea of compromise with the identity pieces. So in full disclosure, my children are celebrating Easter, and the way that my son told my daughter about it was that it's Nowruz, only you get chocolate bunnies. That's right. So you have to figure it out, right? Pick the pieces that work and put it together in a way that feels authentic and right for your family, which I think is beautiful. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Grace. So I did disclose, I know firsthand how effective and special and really powerful your interventions are. Can you share with everyone else a little bit more about the specifics of what you're doing and why you think it's so effective for our Iranian seniors?
So I have to tell you a little bit about the population I work with mostly. Unlike what Ellies was talking about, the new immigrants, most of these Iranians at Grace that I've worked with throughout the years are the parents of adult children who moved here right after the revolution and during or after the war with Iran and Iraq. So they came here, they followed their children who ended up staying here and getting established in the US instead of going back to Iran because of the political climate and the war and everything. So these parents came here, and they were probably in their 50s or maybe early 60s, but they never assimilated to the new culture. They never learned the language. They never started to drive and get a job. Instead, they became 100% dependent on their adult children. And of course, the children either biracially married or otherwise got established in the Northern California, Silicon Valley fast-paced lifestyle, very busy, having all the pressures of both worlds on them. And these parents ended up having to stay home most of the time. They're 100% dependent. A lot of them didn't even have the ability to make their own phone calls to get the doctor's appointments. So what Grace provided for these group is that they, and I have seen it firsthand, after 6 months assessment, reassessment of some of these people who enter this amazing center, you see that they're, first of all, the most prevalent issue that you see amongst this group is the loneliness. And it manifests into being depressed or anxious and feeling powerless and hopeless. So when they come to Grace, they start having meaning and again, and purpose for their lives. And so they have to wake up in the morning early enough to get ready for the bus to pick them up. They come in, they have a community, they find friendships, they find companionships, they start gossiping again, and they start exchanging recipes, and they get into, we have like activities such as a poetry class every day. I run groups, the nutritionist that's there, licensed nutritionist runs groups for them. And besides all of this, they are also being taken care of by registered nurses who take their blood pressure and blood sugar every day. They work with PTs if they have had a stroke recently and they can't walk. After 6 months, you'll be amazed of how much they have improved. The nurses and the social workers, the staff work with their physicians outside of center. They work with their family members. They provide, they ask for IHSS, for example, the in-home social services. They get them outreach program, signed up in outreach programs. So their lives become more meaningful, manageable. Like you said, they find purpose, and so they improve both physically and psychologically when they enter the center. And
not everyone in our community has access to such an amazing program like Grace and these powerful, really, really evidence-based, research-based, powerful interventions. What do you recommend for us and our families? What can we do to provide that hope and to kind of fight that feeling of powerlessness among the elderly in our families?
So if you have, these centers are everywhere. There's daycare models, but they're not run by Iranians, and they're not staffed by Iranians. So what happened at Grace a couple of years ago, a couple of participants came who were Chinese, and they liked it. They came for a visit day, and then they started coming in, little by little, through word of mouth, I think, and they started bringing more and more. So about 10% of our population right now, participants, are Chinese. So the center changed, and they started hiring Chinese-speaking social workers, nurses, and other providers. And so they have their own Chinese food that comes in every day, is catered. And so this is something that can happen. If there are no centers like that around, there are other centers that are maybe not medical model, but for seniors. So if you have grandparents or parents who can be taken to these centers, they can form their own groups. And otherwise, I mean, there are other things you can do to empower them, maybe that we can talk about if you want. I don't know if I have time to go into
I could
it.
give you like 4 more hours, but
Okay.
the timekeeper in back is what's doing this. But thank you.
But
And
if anybody needs some kind of advice or suggestions, I would love to talk to you guys later.
I just want to end that, just get them together. That's
Yes.
the best thing you can do
Yes.
for them. Yeah,
Beautiful.
don't leave them alone.
And true of every generation we've talked about, right? Whether it's the kids at Godistan, or our own children, or families coming here as new immigrants or seniors. I mean, what I'm hearing, the common thread here is really to foster connection and to foster support, whether it's through formal programming or through our own families. So I want to say thank you. I cannot even begin to tell you how honored I was to even be asked to moderate a panel of such accomplished and amazing women in our community. As a psychologist, I'm super impressed by everything that I've heard. I know I've learned a lot, but also I have 2 children. My son is 7, my daughter is 3.5, and I feel like I'm gonna leave this panel discussion with a lot of ideas that I can really connect with my family. So thank you all so much. It's been really a privilege, and I'm excited to spend the rest of the day with all of you. Thank you.